This podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of their affiliated organizations.
Welcome back to Ready to Connect. I'm Lisa.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Heather.
And this week we have a special guest that we're going to be interviewing. But before we get to that special guest, which we're excited for, I'd love to know what's been going on in your life, Ryan.
Wow, okay, on the spot. Let's see. Well, haven't really been doing too much other than looking at all the leaves in my backyard.
Not raking them.
Not raking them.
Every leaf in the neighborhood is in my yard right now.
Yes,
I agree.
yes.
The beauty of New England.
Yes, yes. I took pictures of it the other day, which I can post to our social media as well. It's incredible how many leaves are in the backyard. Um, and then I was trying to make a pile for the dog Watson to jump into because last year he had fun with that.
I was just about to ask if you do that.
But this year he didn't really know what to do with it, so he stood in the pile, which was good. And then I tossed some leaves around, and he kind of just freaked out and went to the back door. So that was that.
Nope, not doing that today. Not today.
Yeah. So, but it was fun,
Yeah.
hanging outside and trying to get the dog to play in the leaves.
Yeah.
Trying to enjoy the last few days of like nice weather in New England.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
What
Yeah.
were you doing this weekend?
This weekend, what did we do?
Or this past week, even?
This past week? Spiritual experiences, just kind of the normal humdrum of spirit talking and, doing its thing with interacting, but nothing like that stands out. Pretty quiet, laid back weekend, which I don't mind, after being away and coming back in, just kind of nice to lay low for the weekend.
Yeah, I didn't go anywhere with Kyle.
No, well, we did take a ride. We took a ride up north just to catch one last leaf peeping session, but
I think you went to one of your favorite places.
I did go to one of my favorite places. I love Kringle Candle.
Oh, okay.
When I said, what'd you just say? Went to Crinkle Candle. All excited.
Do I like their candles?
That's
I like the ride too.
Yeah,
And the
it's a pretty
restaurant
ride.
up there.
Mm.
Yeah,
The I forgot the name of it.
Eslan.
No, oh yeah, we went to Eslan for lunch, which
Okay.
is one of my favorite. That's in Amherst.
Okay.
Great little kind of cafe style, copper ceiling. And
Oh, wow.
it's a really great little nichey place.
Yeah.
But there's a restaurant that Bill Candle has. Do you remember the name of it? Do you know?
No, I don't, but it's farm to table, right?
That's it. Maybe that's the name of it.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But yeah,
Very cool. Well, I think-
enjoyed a nice meal.
Yeah. This
Good.
weekend, pulled mom duty in that we helped our youngest son move out of his apartment into the house where he'll be with his fiance
Oh, nice.
and after they get married. So that was kind of, helping him into that next phase. It's kind of fun to do. Got a lot of stuff that person shouldn't hold on to. But yeah, so that was most of Saturday. Sunday, I was able to get together with some of the faculty in the Art for Healing program over at Hartford Hospital. We had a nice brunch that was put together
Oh,
by
wow.
our program coordinator for us, and just be able to share ideas and program ideas and challenges and all that kind of stuff. Just that camaraderie, and it's fun when you get together with a group of artists too. Just the creativity that flows, So that was kind of nice on Sunday. Otherwise, just kind of home reading, just being home, doing the stuff at home, and that's about all I've been up to. Yeah. All right, so everybody, we're going to get right on to our special guest for this week, and we are excited and happy to welcome Dr. Brian Luke Seaward into the conversation here at Ready to Connect. Just to provide a little information about our guest, Brian Luke Seaward is recognized nationally and internationally as one of the foremost experts in the field of resiliency, stress management, and mind-body-spirit healing. In addition to being regarded as an esteemed inspirational motivational speaker, his wisdom can be found quoted in PBS specials, the Chicago Tribune, the Huffington Post, college graduation speeches, medical seminars, boardroom meetings, church sermons, and keynote addresses all over the world. That's a lot of talking that you do. He has authored more than 20 books, including the popular bestseller Stand Like Mountain, Stand Like Mountain, Flow Like Water, which is my favorite. The Art of Calm, Stressed is Dessert spelled backward, and the leading award-winning college textbook, Managing Stress, which I believe is in its 11th edition. He has a new book out as well titled Mind Over Anxiety, which we will hear more about in this interview. In the role of traveler, visionary, mystic, healer, and mentor, Dr. Seaward has created a legacy in the field of stress management, resiliency, and corporate health promotion for all to share. Currently, he is the executive director of the Paramount Wellness Institute in Boulder, Colorado, and we welcome you to our podcast.
Great. Thanks, guys. I'm real honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't we start right away? We have some
Sure.
questions for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
great. I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for being on the podcast with us. So can you tell us about how you came to incorporate the concepts of human spirituality into your holistic wellness paradigm?
Yeah, great question. I've always felt that health and well-being was more than just physical. And I got a master's degree in the physiology of exercise. And after that degree, I took a job as assistant director of cardiac rehab up in Wisconsin. And it was at that time I was asked to be a speaker at a conference put on by the American Holistic Medical Association. And the reason why I said yes was because the keynote speaker was one of my heroes, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And at the time, she was very, very famous for her book On Death and Dying. But her keynote wasn't about that. Her keynote was called Holistic Wellness. And she began this presentation by drawing a big circle on a flip chart. And she said, "This circle is a symbol of wholeness." And then she drew a line north and south and east and west. And she put in mind, body, spirit, emotions. And she said, "The wellness paradigm includes all aspects of this, not just the physical, not just the mental," she said, "but the emotional and spiritual." And she had me at hello. And the more she talked, the more I thought, I've got to meet this woman because I felt this intuitively for a very long time. And when I got a chance to meet her, she said to me, she didn't say, young man, because I was like about 25 at the time. She goes, "Young man, what do you do for a living?" She goes, "What's your name?" And I told her, and she goes, "What's your passion in life?" And I said,
Wow.
"Everything you've been talking about." And she said, "I need your help." And I said, "Sure, how?" And she said, "Would you help me and people like me reintroduce the ideas of human spirituality back into healthcare, back into health education?" And I felt like I was knighted by the queen. So, of course, that's been my mission ever since. That was like 1980. So, for the past, I don't know, 45 years or so. So, when it came time to teach stress management, and of course, I got this job at the American University. I should tell you that I also, when I was in graduate school at the University of Maryland, get my PhD. I made this a focus of my studies, the integration, balance, and harmony of mind, body, spirit, emotions. And I got to tell you that my my committee looked at me like I had three heads. And I remember one of my advisors saying to me, um, "What do you want to do here? What do you want to study for your graduate PhD program?" And I said, "I want to look at the big picture. I want to see the integration, balance, and harmony of mind, body, spirit, emotions." And I'll never forget what he said. He said, "We don't look at the big picture here."
Wow.
And I thought, ouch. Well,
Yeah.
luckily,
Right.
someone allowed me to do that. And that's been the focus of my work ever since. And I think what makes my focus of resiliency and stress management different than most other people's, at least, for the past, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years or so, is that I've acknowledged the health of the human spirit. For so long, when people taught stress management, it was all about the physical symptoms of stress.
Right.
And I think a lot of people, because stress management is such a colossal topic, um, you've got people in the field of psychology, the people in physiology, the people in sociology, theology, all these different um, disciplines, and nobody talks to each other. But I felt it was very important to pull them all together. And so I wrote this textbook back, gosh, 30 some years ago, and it was really ahead of its time. I think it probably still is. But I had a whole chapter. In fact, the biggest chapter in the book is on the health of the human spirit, stress and spirituality. And I thought for sure that my editor would say, "Well, this chapter's got to go." He
Right.
didn't. He said, it's about time." In fact, the people who reviewed the textbook before it ever actually got printed all said, "It's about time."
Wow.
And now it's in its 11th edition.
Yeah, it's been out for like 35 years, and it's doing really well. I'm so excited. Every day I have a pinch me moment. So it's great. I'm really delighted by that. And here's a cool story. Every now and then I get a phone call from a parent of a student who's using the book, and they'll say, "No, my son or daughter brought this book home from spring break, whatever, and they took it back with them, and then they somehow lost it. Can I get a copy from you?" And I'm like, "Well, the parents even want this stuff."
Absolutely.
That's incredible.
And completely agree with you, Dr. Seward, that our medical system now doesn't focus on the whole body. It just treats the symptom. And then when you have another symptom, it treats the symptom and it's not incorporating. And we see this more and more where people want them, you know, fix my body, but also take my mind with me because I believe mental health has been such a taboo in our society for so long that people like you need to bring it forward so that we heal the mind, we heal the body, and then our spirit will follow, right?
Exactly, yeah. And sometimes we got to work with the spirit first to get the healing of the mind and body on track there.
Absolutely.
I should tell you that first of all, I love the theme of your podcast, and my wife is a big fan of your your podcast. So she said, "I'm so delighted my husband's on the show." But I got to tell you that some of my heroes who have I've stood on the shoulders of would include people like Viktor Frankl and Carl Jung, some people in the field of psychology who also said we need to take a look at the human spirit.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I feel very fortunate that I've had a lot of people pave the way for me to do the work I do, including Kubler Ross.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more people who are coming along. I think now it's a lot more accepted. Back in the 70s and 80s and stuff, when you talked about human spirituality, people kind of took a step back. And now, they're like they take two steps forward. Like, well, what do you know that I don't know? What can you help me with my spiritual journey? So it's very, very important. And I think that when we acknowledge the spiritual dimension of health and well-being, then we have a foot up on trying to help people on their journey, mind, body, spirit, emotions, whatever aspect they're working on right there, to advance to their highest potential.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I love that in your bio you call yourself a mystic. And as my beautiful business partner here and I do psychic readings, I love that you call yourself a mystic. What how do you define through all your work and all that you've seen in this world, how do you define the term mystic for yourself?
Yeah, great question. I'm not sure that really gets you a whole lot of points when you're looking for tenure in academia. So I kind of keep that to certain groups there. But I've discovered this. First of all, I've had a lot of mystical experiences, a lot of spiritual experiences, and we can get into some of those, which I hope we do.
I
But
would love for you to tell us some spiritual experiences.
yeah, yeah. Well, let me answer this question first, then we'll delve into those.
Okay.
So, as someone who's been studying the concept of human spirituality, you come across a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, stuff that you're not going to see in the scientific journals, that's for sure. But what I realized was that you don't need to bilocate or to meditate to be a mystic. Really, what a mystic means is to appreciate the mystery of life. And there is so much we don't understand about what's going on from this third dimensional blinders on scientific view of the world, which we've all pretty much agreed upon. In fact, I got to tell you a funny story. I went to go see a movie a couple of years ago, and this couple in front of me was having a conversation, which I couldn't help but hear. But I thought it was the best um, description of our lives right now. This guy said, he goes, "Well, if you ask me, we're all here in a consensual hallucination."
I love that.
I know, isn't that great? We've all agreed to this crazy game of what's going on here. Of basically, in other words, if things can't be measured through the five senses, they don't exist.
Right.
And of course, I've had so many experiences where things cannot be measured through the five senses, and I've had loads of people come and tell me their stories. It's almost like when I was in academia full time, it was almost like I had a sign on my door that said, "If you've had a mystical experience, walk right in because I want to hear it." And
Oh, I
and
love that. I love that.
believe me, I did. I heard all
I
kinds
was
of
the
stuff.
same way.
Yeah, we're all birds of the same feather here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I think, you don't need to have magical powers to be a mystic. It just means to appreciate the mystery. And if you can begin to do that, then you're truly an evolved soul because so many people are in denial or refuse to believe that there's a bigger picture going on. But every now and then in my life, the curtain's been pulled back. You take a peek to the bigger picture and you think, oh my God. And then the curtain closes and you think, okay, did I just see that? Did I just have that experience? And you go through this question of doubting, and you think, no, that was real. That was very real. And no one can take that away from you when you've had those. No one.
I really appreciate your definition of mystic, which means
Yeah.
all of our listeners that appreciate the mysteries that we talk about here on the podcast are mystics themselves.
Mhm.
The people
Exactly.
who see us are mystic themselves, right? And hopefully every now and then their little curtain gets pulled back and they have their moments of, wow, did that just really happen? And they can see that truth. Um, just a full disclosure for our listeners, I know Luke through the fact that he was also a faculty and a supervisor. I took his internship in holistic stress management instruction, where, yes, I did get the textbook. I have the textbook highlighted. My business partner took the textbook and is using it to create programs for herself. So it gets a lot of use, that textbook. But my favorite book that you wrote was Stand Like Mountain, Flow Like Water. It's well loved, it's well used, highlighted. And in that, you talk a little bit about one of the stories about your mystical initiation. And I'd love for you to share it with the group. And then any other spiritual experiences you'd love to impart to us. We just want to hear it all.
Sure, sure. Let me begin with one of the first ones, and we'll build up to what was in the textbook and the Stanley Lake Mountain book there.
That's fair.
So when I was about 10 or 11, I forget the exact age because it was so long ago, but I had this dream that a neighbor's car had rolled down the driveway and then crossed the street and then hit a couple of trees and knocked a tree over. And I thought, oh, that isn't that interesting? I didn't think much of it till I walked down to the school bus stop and saw trees that had been knocked over and a fence. And I'm thinking like, oh, right across from the driveway where this car allegedly in my dream had happened. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? And so at the school bus, I said to some people, I said, anyone know what happened to these trees and the fence across from so and so's house? And this one gal said, yeah, my dad forgot to put the emergency brake on the car last night and it rolled down the driveway and hit these trees and the fence. And I thought I did it because I had seen it before it happened.
The power of you, huh?
I was like, 10 years old. I'm like, did I do this? And then I thought, I'm not going to tell anybody because I'll get in trouble. That's the
Right.
typical response, right?
Right.
But I've had a couple of other psychic dreams. One of my favorites is when I lived in DC. I was asked to speak at the White House a couple times. This is during the George Bush and Bill Clinton era, not now. And I had a dream that the White House was struck by lightning 3 times, and it kind of went up in flames. And then someone ran out and said, "Don't worry, everyone's safe. Everything's going to be okay." And then the flames were put out. And I will remember waking up thinking to myself, "That's kind of weird." And then I got an invitation to speak at the White House on stress management. And the day I spoke, somebody went and jumped the fence with a knife and tried to attack the guards. And they called me up and they said, listen, there's some problems going on here, but we really need you because everyone's stressed. So I just want you to know that, you're still on. The next time I was asked to come back again, like about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months later or 6 months later. And there's another attack on the White House.
Boy, every time you go, huh?
Well, wait to hear this part. And then the third time, do you guys remember this? It was like about 20, 30 years ago, but a plane, Piper Cub, it crashed into the White House. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was supposed to speak of that day, and they called me up and they said, listen, we've had a little problem here. We're going to cancel you. Then they called back up and they said, no, we changed our mind. We need you. Things are very stressed here. Come on in. So I get there and I'm thinking like, this is like the dream, 3 strikes on the White House.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the guys in the Secret Service said, I noticed a trend every time you come here.
Right.
We're keeping an eye on you, buddy.
As the black vehicles slowly drive by your house.
Yeah. Gives Men in Black a whole new story.
Yeah.
Then another dream I had, this one is actually kind of bone-chilling cool. I was asked to be part of a group of people putting together an integrated medicine unit at a hospital in the Midwest. And they wanted to have a kind of like a retreat for all the people who were involved with this. And this one nurse said, "Listen, I've got a house down in Sedona." She said, "Why don't we all meet there? It's much better to meet there in February than Chicago." And there was like four of us, and we were like, "Yeah, great idea. Let's go to Sedona." So we all go down, fly down to the Phoenix, and then drive up. And I was with this one nun. It was a Catholic hospital, and this nun and I travel together, and we get to the house, and there's a sign on the door that says, "I'm out doing grocery shopping. Keys under the mat. Make yourself at home." So, we grab the key, we go inside, and Judian, who knows this gal, her name was Carolyn, takes me through the house. And when you couldn't help but see when you walk from the living room to the hallway down to the bedrooms, there was a big montage of photographs. There was the picture of the husband, wife, and the son and daughter, Carolyn, and I forget the Jerry, I think his name was the son. He was in the military, so he had like a military photo. And there was all kinds of photos around this montage of family. So Carol comes home about an hour later, and then we all go out for dinner. And by this time, since Judy has told me about the family, people in the family, the kids and the husband and stuff, we all go out for dinner. We talk about the healthcare crisis. We talk about what we can do, solve some world problems, and then we come back. And because everyone's on a different time zone, we all go to bed. That night, I have a dream. I dream that I'm thirsty because I'm in the desert, and I get up and go for a glass of water in the kitchen. And I get to the kitchen, and there's this guy right by the fridge. He's got real long brown hair, very thin face, thin nose, ruggedly handsome. And he looks at me and he goes, "Hi," puts his hand out. He goes, "Hi, my name is Larry." And I said, "Hi, Larry." I said, "My name's Luke." And he said, "Luke, I need a favor." And I said, "Sure, what?" He goes, "Would you tell my mom that I'm okay? She needs to hear this right now." And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll tell her." And I'm thinking like this guy looks like he's about 30 years old or so.
Chills already. I got
And
chills.
and so he goes, "Oh, wait a minute. She needs to hear something more. Tell her that I'm doing great and that this will put a smile on her face that things are going perfect. She'll understand this in terms of what you say." So I wake up to the sound of noises in the kitchen, and Carolyn is fixing breakfast. So I throw on some clothes, walk down the hall, and see the picture of her son, who's got blonde hair and blue eyes. His name is Jerry, and I'm thinking like, God, the guy in the dream's name was Larry, and he's had dark hair and dark eyes. So I walk in the kitchen, and Carolyn says, "Good morning." She said, "How'd you sleep last night?" And I said, "I slept great, but I had a really interesting dream." And she goes, "Well, that happens when you're at different people's houses." She goes, "Sit down, tell me about it." She goes, "I'm into all dreams." So I said, "Well, I was thirsty looking for a glass of water, and I come in the kitchen like I am now, and there's a guy standing by the fridge, and he says to me his name is Larry, and he's about 30 years old and has long brown hair, brown eyes, ruggedly handsome, thin nose, and she's whipping pancake batter. She turns around and looks at me. And I said, "He's got a message for you." And she goes, "What's the message?" And I said, "Well, he tells me that you're worried about him and you shouldn't be because he's doing great and he really wants you to know he's doing wonderful." I said, "Does that make sense? Because I thought son's name was Jerry, but this guy's name is Larry, and he looks very different than the guy in the photograph." And she says, "There is no way you ever could have known this." And I said, "No, what?" And she said, "My first son died of SIDS 31 years ago."
Wow.
And she said, "His birthday is tomorrow." And she said, "I've been telling myself, just put it out of your head, let it go, move on." And I said, "He told me one more thing." She said, "What's that?" I said, "He told me to tell you he loves you very much. And we're all here to share love." Isn't that cool?
Yeah. That's
Beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So, so very much some psychic dreams going on there, and so Lisa, you're not the only one that sees dead people.
She's a seer.
I see the
Oh, okay.
She's a seer. Heather's a seer. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, here's a cool story. So I go to do a book signing for Stanley Mountain out in LA, and this gal walks up to me and she goes, "Hi, would you send this to me?" And she tells me her name and she says, "I'm really jealous." And I said, "Why? Do you want to write a book?" And she goes, "No." She goes, "I'm jealous that you met the brother I never met." And I'm like, "Is your name Carolyn?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh my God." She goes, "It's so," she gives me a big hug. She goes, "It's so great to meet you. I've heard this story for so long."
Oh,
So
wow.
she
Wow.
goes, "But you need to know the rest of the story." I said, "Well, sure. What is it?" she goes, well, as you know, Dad died last year, and she said we took his ashes and we did a big ceremony out in the desert in Arizona. And I said, yeah. I said, I know Tony passed away. I'm sorry about that. And she said, well, my mom and I, my brother, are there. We've got drums. We're chanting the four directions. We're saying prayers and stuff, and so gonna send Tony off. And finally, my mom stands up and she says, Tony, if you're up there, give me a sign. And as soon as she said that, this big rainbow appears in the sky. She said, but there were no clouds. It was a desert, dry environment. She said, it was just unbelievable. My mom says, Tony, that's not good enough. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's the groundwork for some of my mystical experiences, and I've had some other ones too, but the one that was in the book, which is people sometimes take a step back when they hear this, so just warn your audience.
It's a great story. Yeah.
I woke up one morning. I live in the DC area, and I walk in the shower and I pour some shampoo on my hand, and I look at my hand, and there's a symbol imprinted on my hand. It's a circle within a circle, and there's lines from the center out to the edges, like a sun, so rays of a sun. And I'm thinking, like, where the heck did this come from? So I get out of the shower, write it down because I thought this was going to fade away for sometime pretty soon. And I thought to myself, what is this? I said, was I like sleepwalking? My first thought was, you go through all the rational thoughts. And I looking around the apartment for things that could resemble something where I could press my hand against it that would make an imprint.
Right.
Nothing looks like this. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And I began to ask around, and I'm tongue in cheek here. I thought maybe I'm being abducted by aliens. I'm trying to give myself a sign here. So, but it happened five more times in this hand over the course of a year. And by this point, the second time, every morning I wake up like, is it there today? And then the seventh time it happened in my left hand. So it was the first six in the right hand, last one my left hand, and there was a word on my finger. The word was VID, and I'm like, what does VID mean? And through a sense of synchronicity, I learned that day that the word vid is a Sanskrit word which means wisdom. And I thought to my first thought was, what did I touch last night that I've got ink on my hands? And I was grading exams, but I had a red pen, and this was like charcoal. And then when I washed off, it just washed off and was gone, unlike ink that would stay for a while.
Right.
So I'm thinking, what is this? And I asked a lot of people what it was. I was looking for feedback, and I talked to a priest, and you know what he said? He goes, "I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole."
Oh,
And
right.
I thought, well, there's faith for you.
Yeah. You're scaring
Uh,
people.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And a lot. So I brought up the bit about aliens. Now this is like 35 years ago, before it was a popular topic, and I couldn't believe the amount of denial from people that we're the only intelligent life on the cosmos. I thought, okay, that's a little arrogant. But finally, I went to go see my first psychic, Lisa, and she said to me, "Oh, this is your initiation." She said, she goes, "You're right on schedule." She goes, "You're doing good." She goes, "You're about to have a rather large public speaking career ahead of you, and this is part of your initiation." And sure enough, she was right. At that point there, I ended up leaving academia and doing a lot of public speaking events and more books and things. It was kind of wild. She said, if you want to know what the sign is, she goes, look up Celtic symbols. She goes, you'll find it there. She goes, you had a past life in Ireland. She goes, but we think you know that already.
And how true that is, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's some of my mystical experiences. But I've also had a lot of people come to me with mystical experiences too, and I noticed that there's a trend that when you're open to the possibility that there's a bigger mystery to explore, more what I call cosmic breadcrumbs get dropped in front of you that you begin to piece things together. And what I typically say is that as soon as I get one more piece in the puzzle, the perimeter expands exponentially.
Mm.
Always.
Yeah, always.
Always.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So, Dr. Seaward, I would love to hear about, and myself and the audience would love to hear about like your work with energy medicine and energy healing, and how you kind of combine them together or separate them. I mean, I just absolutely love hearing about your take on each one and how you blend them together or keep them separate.
Yeah, thanks. No, everything's connected. So, I think I first came across the concept of a chakra back in the early 80s, if not late 70s. And back then, if you said the word chakra, the response was Gesundheit. That's how far we've come.
Yeah.
Um,
Or they
but
actually think there's a dot like in their body, that color, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. We've come a long way. Um, but I was teaching at the American University, and I was told that I couldn't have two classes that I taught have the same content. And since I had a class called Modern Theories of Health and Wellness, looking at mind, body, spirit integration, I couldn't have a lot of stress management stuff in there, which was kind of stupid. I mean, I only had one night on that, but I thought, okay, I'll do some new content. So I went down to this wonderful bookstore in DC called the Yes Bookstore, long gone, but it was a metaphysical bookstore. And I found this book called Hands of Light by Barbara Ann Brennan.
I love that book.
Love that.
Yeah,
One
me
of my
too. It's
favorites.
phenomenal. And remind me to tell you a funny story about Rosalind Bruyere, her mentor. But so then I thought there's not enough content in this book. I need one other book. So I went down back to the bookstore and I found this book. God, what's it called now? By Robert Becker. And there was only one copy of it. There was a woman next to me as I was reaching for it. She was reaching for it too. And I said to her, "Excuse me," I said, "You were both reaching for the same book. There was only one book." I said, "What do you want this book for?" And she goes, "Oh, you wouldn't believe me if I told you." And I said, "Trust me, it's a Yes Bookstore. I'll believe you." She said, "Well," she goes, "things are kind of weird in my house." She goes, "I'll walk into a room and the lights go on, and I walk into the garage and the door goes up without even touching the button." She goes, "I walk into the kitchen and the dishwasher goes on." She goes, "Why do you want it?" And I said, "It's okay. Go ahead and take it." But it turns out the owner of the bookstore got us each a copy. And in that book, there was a story about a healer named Mietek Verkis. Kind of a strange name. It turns out he's from Poland, but he is a healer, energy healer. And I thought, wow. And so I love the story about how he can see the auras and the chakras and stuff. And I thought, this is cool, kind of like Barbara Ann Brennan. So I go to class at night and I give a lecture about energy fields and the chakras and the meridians and I can't tell you all here, but you get the idea. And someone in the class said, Mietek Verkis he's my neighbor. He lives like two doors down. I'm like, this guy lives in DC. So I got his contact information and I called him up because I thought maybe I could learn something from him. And he says, I'm doing a class, a year-long class. We have one spot left. He goes, I'll save it for you. So I took a year-long class in energy medicine and learned firsthand about some amazing stuff of the energy fields, the chakras, the meridians, how stress can cause distortions in the energy field, and if they are left unresolved, they cascade down to the body where they can cause disease or illness. And so the minute you talk about stress, you got my attention. Well, I've met a lot of amazing mystics and healers through him because he said to me, there's an organization that you might want to know about. It's called ICM. It stands for the International Society for the Study of Energy Medicine and Subtle Energy and Energy Medicine. And so I went to this conference. This is back in 1990. And it was made up of physicists, physicians, and energy healers.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
it was unbelievable. And I'm sitting there, I'm like just like a news reporter, like taking notes, like watching all the stuff going on. And it was unbelievable. And I thought, how come no one talks about this? I mean, you don't find this stuff in physics books, and you don't find physics in medicine books. What's going on here? Well, it turns out that back then, Elmer Green was one of the founders of biofeedback. Um, he had gathered a bunch of people together every year, and we're talking hundreds of people, to explore consciousness. And he had me at hello. And so I began to meet other healers, energy healers, and other people with talents, psychic talents and stuff. And it almost seemed like, again, a sign on my forehead. If you've got an ability, I want to meet you. I want to talk to you. And I had two agendas. One was I'm collecting data for my textbook, and this is all in my textbook. I have a chapter on stress and disease. It was the first textbook back in 1993 to talk about the energy fields, the chakras, the meridians, the stuff. And I thought, I can't believe the publisher let that in there, to be honest with you. I mean, now, now we just take it for granted, but 35 years ago, this was avant-garde, cutting edge stuff.
Well,
So,
now our medicine professionals, they've developed devices that can actually quantify the human aura and the energy fields and stuff like that. So now it's okay, right, to talk about
yeah.
it and have it in textbooks. So it was amazing that it was left in your textbook back then.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I'm still pinching myself. But one of my favorite healing stories, just to give some credence to this, was I had a skiing accident a couple of years ago, and I hit a patch of ice. I live in Colorado, and our snow is powder compared to the East Coast stuff. But for one particular weekend, things got crusty. I went skiing on Monday, and I somehow missed the powder and hit the ice, and I was airborne, and I landed on my head and my back. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I can move fingers and toes, so nothing's paralyzed here, but I think we're done for the day. So I got up and I skied down the mountain, and then I was with a friend of mine, and we drove home, and that was it. But the next morning, I had a whiplash. I mean, I could not move from my neck down to my stomach. I was like, how do I get out of bed here? It's unbelievable. So, but I did. And then later that day, I had a dermatology appointment, and the nurse, who never says this, says, "We're going to take your blood pressure." And I'm like, okay. And so she takes my blood pressure, which is normally 120 over 80. It was so sky high. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was something like 210 over something like 130. And she says, "You need to go see a doctor." I'm like, "I'm at a doctor's office. Come on." She goes, "This is a skin doctor." She goes, "Go see somebody else." And I'm thinking like, wow. And I never put together this was the cause of the accident. So I go see my acupuncturist, and she says, "I can't help you. Go see a doctor." I'm like, ruh-roh. And I talked to a friend of mine who said, there's a really good energy healer named Masajati. She goes, he lives in Minnesota. She goes, and he has like a 2 month wait to get in to see him. She goes, "But I've got an in. So call his private number." And she goes, "He'll take care of you." So I call this guy up out of the blue. Now I'm in Colorado. He's in Minnesota, 1,000 miles away. And he goes, "Yeah, I can work with you right now." And then he says this. "Wow, I've never seen this before. This is what you don't want to have a healer say to you. Wow, I've never seen this before."
Yep.
So I said, "What is it?" And he goes, "You've got a pinched nerve, I think you got a pinched artery in your neck." And I said, "Can you fix it?" And he goes, "Yeah." And the minute he said, "Yeah," all of a sudden my body just went, just collapsed. And I thought, wow, I feel so relaxed now. He goes, "You also got some stuff going on your right shoulder. Is that where you landed?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "We can fix that too." I had my blood pressure taken later that day, 120 over 80.
Mhm.
So, how do you explain somebody who can, over the phone, tap into the vibration of your voice and then do some kind of energy healing 1,000 miles away? I mean, in the medical community, they would say nonsense or bullshit. This is crazy. It doesn't happen like this. But it did because it happened to me. I'm the beneficiary of it. And I know these stories are not uncommon if you follow the path of the energy healer who can do amazing things in many cases, not every case. It's not 100%, and I'll tell you why in a second. Um, but it is remarkable, and I'm very very grateful for having had that experience. Okay, so here's why it's not 100%. At this conference I went to with the physicists and the healers and the MDs, they did a panel discussion. And one guy, he's kind of like the doubting Thomas of the world. I think he was a physician. He goes, "If you healers are so great, how come you can't heal 100%?" And Miatek says, "Well, sometimes we're told not to interfere."
Correct.
And there was just a hush in the room of 200 people. He said, "Sometimes we're told this is the patient's karma to have this experience, and we're told not to interfere." He said, "About 85% of what we do is stress related." He said, 15% we're told don't interfere. So the minute you talk about karma, you also introduce, whether you know it or not, the ideas of reincarnation. And for a lot of physicians and physicists who have been educated a certain way that in order for things to be real, you got to measure the five senses repeatedly. reincarnation doesn't really fit into the picture, but through the eyes of the bigger picture, it's certainly part of that.
You see, myself and Heather, we're nodding our heads to everything you're talking about when it comes to that distance healing experience, as well as not being able to heal 100%. And these are the same words we speak to our students, that not everything is meant to be healed. Sometimes there's lessons that still need to be learned. And so I'm so glad you put it in your words too, because
Yes.
that's just amazing.
And the beauty of energy, right? The beauty of you being on the phone and him on the phone in two different states. And it just proves there is no boundaries to energy. Energy is, it's boundless. It's so amazing how you can tap into that when you're trained or learn how to do it. And you can really, really help yourself, mind, body, and soul. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hey, so do you want to hear that story about Rosalind Bruyer before I forget it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Absolutely. Who
so
wouldn't?
there's a really good movie if you want to see it. It's called Resurrection. And I think Ellen Bernstein's the actress in it, and you probably can find it on Netflix or something like that. It's a story of Rosalind Bruyer, who was one of the most renowned, she thinks she's still alive, most renowned energy healers that trained Barbara Ann Brennan. And that's Barbara Ann Brennan took the concepts and put it into a book, Hands of Light. So at this energy conference, which they held every year for like, I don't know, 20 years, it's kind of like ceased operations since COVID. But Rosalind Breuer was one of the speakers one year, and I was there at the conference. And so at the very end, they ask everyone to walk outside under this big pavilion and you hold hands and you don't sing Kumbaya, but we're all doing a goodbye. And who is right next to me but Rosalind Bruyere? And I'm holding hands with her and I'm thinking like, oh my God, I gotta be very careful because if she thinks I'm taking her energy, she'll be really upset. I don't want to take her energy. And then I thought maybe I should give her some energy. I thought, no, don't give energy without asking permission to give energy. And the whole time I'm like, holding her hand, thinking like, what do I do? What do I do? And she passed me this one. She goes, it's okay. She goes, we're good. Calm down. I thought it was pretty funny.
You recognized you were struggling with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And,
Hey, she's good. What can I say?
one of the things I like about energy healing in you, Luke, and our listeners heard us talk about going off to Africa, and then when I came back, sharing some of the experiences. So, one of the wonderful experiences I've had with you, and so our listeners know, is you are one who puts together these groups that do these experiences. My husband and I have been with you twice to Ireland, and now just returned back from Africa. And I just want you to talk a little bit about these trips, how you put them, why you put them together, why they're so special. If you could talk a little bit more about that, and then we're going to get right into your new book, if you don't
Sure,
mind.
sure. Okay, great. Yeah, so I being of Irish heritage, the McNulty clan and the Egan clan and a few other ones in there. I had the opportunity to go to Ireland, and I thought to myself, I should actually make this a bigger group. And at the same time that I thought about this, I had some other colleagues of mine who would go to Machu Picchu and go to the pyramids in Egypt, and they were working with the ley lines. And I thought maybe what I can do is turn this into a trip where I bring a bunch of people who are energy healers, mostly they're nurses and people in the allied health profession, but see if we could do some work to help clear the ley lines. Now, Ireland's renowned for its ley lines, and ley lines go by different names. Sometimes people call them dragon lines. In Ireland, they're called fairy lines. And they're kind of like the meridians of the earth, but Ireland's got a lot of them that connect, and you can tell where the connections are because they have sacred sites on top of the connections or the intersections, like dolmens and stone circles and various stone structures that have been there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So, but because of the wars and all of the problems in our world, a lot of these ley lines have become congested and distorted. People have actually used the energy in them for nefarious means. And so a number of people have been directed through their spiritual guidance to go to various parts of the world to clear the ley lines out, like almost like an acupuncture needle would do with a meridian in the physical body. And so I decided to put together what I call these healing ceremonies where, and by the way, I am not an energy healer. Let's just make that very clear right now. Um, in fact, let me take a side step here. I've only seen one aura. I was taught to see auras with Mia Tech's class, but I failed that miserably. But I took my students to go see Ram Dass one year when he came to DC. And around Ram Dass, there was this huge purple aura. And I had been swimming earlier that day, and I thought I had chlorine in my eyes. So I turned to one of my students. I said, "Do you see a purple haze around Ram Dass?" And he goes, "I sure do." And the guy behind me, who I didn't even know, goes, "I see it too." Ram Dass was kicking out some Jews.
Wow.
Anyway, so I thought I would begin the ceremony with some Irish poetry and some Irish poems from John O'Donohue and a lot of other people. We had some music. We had some time to meditate, and I would ask people to go to various parts of the sacred area there and just sit there and just send love to the planet, send love to the ley lines, and to try and offer something back to Mother Earth. People have been taking and taking and taking. It was our chance to give something back. And so we would do this at various parts. We would go in Ireland, and yeah, Lisa, you were part of that. In fact, my favorite story with you, Lisa, is that one of my friends, Freddie Silva, who's really big into crop circles and sacred sites. He's a buddy of mine. You might have heard of him on Gaia TV. He and I were having dinner one night, and I told him I was going to go to Ireland and this one area, and he goes, "Oh, the Durrag Stone Circle." He goes, "There's a wonderful spiritual being there." And he says, her name is so and so. I forget the name. She's very tall, long blonde hair, glowing and glowing energy and a long gown. She's the guardian of this stone circle. So we get to the stone circle like a few months later. Lisa, you're in this group, and Lisa comes up to me and she goes, "There's a guardian here at the stone circle. Her name is so and so, and she's got long blonde hair and a flowing gown." And I'm like, just like Freddie said. I'm like, "Wow, you're good." And then you said, "She's so pleased that you brought music because people come here and they don't do that stuff. She loves the music." We had fiddle players at our sacred sites there. So, and my favorite story about this is our guide and driver, actually, his name is Patty. He says, "I do 40 tours a year to Ireland." He goes, "And yours is the only one I look forward to because you give something back to Ireland."
Yeah, yeah. That was one of my favorite experiences is going to those stone circles or those sacred sites and just giving back energy back and getting the almost like a sigh of relief spiritually.
Yeah.
That would happen there, like thank you, a gratitude and a thank you, and just that those moments of I don't know, just unity, everybody together doing that together as a group. And you put together a good group of people that are willing and wanting to give back. And of course all the music is just amazing too, that you bring music. We do sound healing and my business partner has taught me a lot about music and just sound in general and how that's healing to the human spirit. So and the body. So
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
yeah.
We had one guy one year, I think the second year I did it, he had brought dowsing rods and he was saying, "I'll find these ley lines." And, and he goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "There's two of them right here, right in the top of the stone circle." He was like almost in disbelief. And I thought, that's why we're here.
Yeah, I've had a lot of wonderful experiences on the trips to Ireland and as well as Africa too. And um, we I can't thank you enough for offering that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's quite magical. In fact, can I tell you one? You probably know this story, but I'll tell you to the audience here. The very first year, we went to a place in the Dingle Peninsula. It's a stone church that's I think like 1,600 years old, and we usually go on summer solstice because there are certain sacred days in the Irish calendar, the Celtic calendar, the solstice and the equinoxes, and then the quarter days. But we were there in summer solstice, and the clouds were thick as molasses. It's typical Ireland weather. It's cloudy or rainy. This time it was cloudy, and so we went out at 10 o'clock to the stone circle, the stone church, and we go inside, and it only fits like about 10 people. We had 20, so we're kind of, kind of intimate there. And we're playing fiddle music, and we were singing songs. I'd read a poem and stuff. And then Dan, our musician, says, "Now I want to sing a song. I want you all to sing along with me." And it was "Here Comes the Sun" by George Harrison. So we all start singing the song, and the door to this church opens up to sunset. That's what it's done in terms of its um, architecture for the sacred sites. And as we sing this song, light comes in, the last rays of light from the day of this amazing day of summer solstice come into the church through the door and lights up the whole room. And our guide, who had never seen anything like this before, grabs my elbow and he goes, "Something magical is afoot here."
That was
And
Stony, right?
that
Stony?
was Stony, yeah. And it turns out that I discovered that the Irish used the word magical to mean spiritual.
Yeah.
And it was we have lots of magical moments over there, it was for sure. But that was one of my favorite ones. And I saw him, I was back in Ireland this summer, and he goes, "Remember that time we were in the Stone Church?" He goes, "Magical."
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
I was able to capture a little magic on film, which I'll put up on our socials too. I got that picture of some sort of wood fairy or whatever, remember?
Yeah, yeah, that was cool.
I'll
That
put
was
share
very
that.
cool.
That was captured in Killarney National Park. That was really pretty cool. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that was very special. Yeah.
it's great how that energy healing is able to give back and how you've put those groups together and visit many places.
For those who don't understand or may not be familiar with this, the Earth has got meridians like the human body does, but there's actually, I was told, three layers. There's the underneath the ground, there's on top of the ground, and there's above the ground. And there's like this incredible matrix of living energy that surrounds or permeates the planet. And as I understand it, there's been so much work done with people like us and you and everyone involved on trying to raise consciousness that we have cleared the matrix of the grid around the planet so that more people can begin to wake up spiritually to the realization that we're part of something much bigger and there is no separation, there is no division. We are part of one beautiful collective of love.
Mhm. Very nice. Well, thank you for sharing all that.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And the truth.
Yeah, yeah, very cool.
Oh, so I really would love to hear more about this new book that you have produced. You know, a little bit of a fangirl over here, so I've read everything. Um, congratulations for producing another immensely in-depth, wealth of knowledge book. So many people in our society suffer from anxiety. So this is like truly an inspiration. So what kind of inspired you to like put this into a book format for people like myself and everybody else listening?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I
Heartfelt
wish I could.
congratulations from all of us, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I wish I could take all the credit. I really can't. I have a publisher in Connecticut, actually near the New York side of things. And she contacted me last year and she said, let's do a four-part podcast on stress, anxiety, and neuroplasticity and meditation. And what it was supposed to be was not a conversation, but more like a lecture, a four-part lecture. And we got done doing all the taping, and she said, "This is bigger than a podcast." She goes, "We need to do a book." So she transcribed all of the recordings and then sent me a manuscript with about 50 pages. And I took a look and I thought, this is not enough to be a book. We need more. So I embellished it quite heavily and just added a lot more content to kind of make it look like, a substantial book to hold and to read and stuff. By the way, her company does mostly audiobooks. So I thought this was going to be an audiobook. And when it got all said and done with the manuscript, she goes, "Oh no," she goes, "it'll be a book you hold in your hand, an ebook, and an audiobook." So I asked her initially, or maybe she told me that the inspiration for this was that last year the most Googled word was anxiety. And people right now are are very, very anxious, very, very apprehensive about the state of the world right now. Whether it's our country, everywhere in the world is experiencing this. It's not just the United States. We hear most of it because we live here, but there's great change going on, and we could spend a whole show on that in itself. And just to kind of be brief about it, there is this, as I understand it, there is this awakening process going on, the grand awakening. Some people call it the grand unraveling. It has lots of different names, but we are coming to the realization in this age of Aquarius, where all the clocks are coming to the top of the hour, something big is happening here on planet Earth and actually beyond that we are part of in terms of the realization the birthing of an awareness of oneness in our consciousness. And it's a very exciting time to be alive, but it also leads to a lot of stress and tension and anxiety, hence all the Googling. So, this book is really kind of a simple approach to people who are unfamiliar with meditation, which by now you would think everybody is, but to really put down some scientific facts about when you begin to meditate, you begin to rewire your brain for peace and relaxation. And what we're seeing right now is the opposite. People are wiring their brain for stress with all the doom scrolling with all their devices, screen devices. And back when I first got involved with stress management, I was with sports psychology. I was a sports psychologist for the Olympic biathlon team, and I was teaching what we called mental training back then. Um, but really, what it came down to was how to improve your mental well-being so that you could actually have the best physical performance at the Olympics. And if you were stressed, you were not going to have the best performance. So I taught stress management techniques, and meditation was one of them. But the whole idea is that if you practice something over and over again, it's like traveling on a dirt road, which soon becomes a superhighway. And that's neuroplasticity. But it's not just for athletes, it's for everybody. So we're seeing neuroplasticity, the rewiring of brain cells, the reformation of brain cells. We're seeing people wire themselves for stress because of all of the negative fear mongering in the news, the doom scrolling, all kinds of stuff that people don't like. This book says you can use that same concept and wire your brain for relaxation. And although there's not a whole lot of spiritual essence in this book, because that wasn't the purpose of it, I snuck as much in as I could.
Um, the book talks a lot about the meditation. Love for you if you're willing to share your own meditation practices and what you do for yourself when it comes to meditation.
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to. I get this question a lot. Okay, so a little bit of sharing here. When I first realized I was meditating, it came from high school swim team. Because when you're swimming in the water, you can't talk to anybody. You're facing the water, you're doing laps, and you got a lot of time to think about stuff, aside from what's in the bottom of the pool. And then I swam in college, and I realized that it was like a moving meditation. I mean, it's like Tai Chi or something. When I was introduced to what meditation was back in the late 70s, I thought, yeah, I kind of do that. I'm aware. I'm in the present moment with my swimming. That's a meditation. But then I decided to sit and quietly just focus on my breathing, and not in the water, by the way, in my meditation room. And it was a whole different experience. So my typical meditation experience goes like this. I get up in the morning, go for a walk around the nature preserve where I live. And yesterday I saw two coyotes. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
Um,
I heard
Usually I
them off in
see,
the distance at my house the other night.
did you?
Yeah.
They may have been talking to the ones out here. I don't know. Um,
Maybe.
but I kind of like commune with nature, talk to the trees, the animals and stuff. Then I come back and then I take a shower. Then I go in my meditation room. I got a room called the meditation room. Sometimes we call it the Zen room because there's nothing in there. And and I just sit quietly for half an hour and I just focus on my breathing. I also go through the chakras. And Edgar Casey had a three-part series for meditation, which I kind of follow. First, you focus on your breathing. You breathe in divine light and you breathe out things which no longer serve you. You do that for, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 minutes or so. Then you kind of go through the chakras and think of the colors and the vibrancy of each of the areas of your body that the colors correspond to. And sometimes when I get bored, I think of colored flowers or colored birds or things in the rainbow like that, because you got to add some spice to your meditation practice. And then I go through and connect to the divine and to Mother Earth. And then I will do like a ho'oponopono. I'll ask forgiveness for anyone who I have wronged or have not been copacetic with. And then I give thanks. I kind of end my meditation with gratitude.
I think a lot of people think meditation is just an emptying of the mind, like just no thoughts whatsoever. And I find that I cannot meditate that way, that I have to have some sort of like almost purpose or thought out, um, I don't use the word protocol for my meditation, but something that I rely on, a routine, I guess, in my meditation, sort of like what you do, you know. Yeah, I find
Yeah,
that,
there are hundreds, if not thousands, of ways to meditate.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. How does thinking differ from meditation?
Wow, that's a great question. Uh, let me get back to you on that one. No. Um, Thinking basically is observing the thoughts and sometimes a string of thoughts that continually make themselves known to you in your conscious awareness. And it's one of my friends calls it thought linking. Thinking is thought linking, where you kind of like go from one thought to the next thought to the next thought. If you ever thought to yourself, how did I get in this type of conversation? You kind of trace it back to something which is totally unrelated, but somehow they're all connected. A lot of times they use this term called monkey mind, where your mind is racing all over the place. The thoughts are ricocheting off the walls of your brain, like, whoa, duck. That's thinking. And there's a lot of creative thinking going on. I mean, this one question could take 4 days to answer, so I'll give you a brief one. But thinking basically is a process of observing your thoughts, and they can be any kind of thoughts. Meditation is saying, let's put a pause on those thoughts and, as Lisa said, think of nothing. Or the Zen mind is where you have no thoughts at all, which is virtually impossible. But you can try and minimize the thoughts, and that's what meditation does. My favorite explanation or definition of meditation is to domesticate the ego. Because
Oh,
so
awesome.
many thoughts come from ego-based things. And what I typically say is if you don't domesticate the ego, you're going to have poop all over the place.
That's right. That's right.
So in your book, Mind Over Anxiety, is that you find that meditation is a way in which to deal with that anxiety?
Yes.
Or does
And
it
also,
make a difference to how the anxiety is produced?
yeah, yeah. A lot of the anxieties that come from the ego, and I don't go into great detail, but I definitely talk about that. The ego actually is the good guy. It's what trips the fight or flight response to say, danger, Will Robinson, danger, danger, danger. But it's only supposed to last a short period of time. In fact, fear is supposed to last seconds to maybe minutes. Anxiety is chronic fear in perpetuity. You're like always thinking that life's in danger and you're apprehensive about everything. So this says, let's unplug from that mindset and just calm the ego so we don't have those thoughts or minimize those thoughts. And then when you can become the observer of your thoughts, you realize that you are not a slave to your thoughts.
I love that.
There's a lot being done and talked about anxiety, right? Everybody seems to have anxious moments or have some sort or form of anxiety. What do you feel is the biggest reason for anxiety that's happening now? I mean, more and more young people I'm running across, they'll tell me, "Oh, I have anxiety." I mean, in our practice with readings and healing, I would say the number one reason a person comes to our Reiki sessions is anxiety.
Not just mental anxiety, physical anxiety, where their body is actually responding to the mental anxiety. And it has, yeah, I mean, Lisa and
Yeah,
I have been together for 13 years, and more over the last
event
years,
anxiety.
where people are having physical anxiety and mental anxiety, and then it just spins their spiritual anxiety out of control. And I
I'm just
it's
Yeah.
so astronomical now, incredible.
I'm just wondering, in the research you did with your book and the writing of the book, did you come across certain aspects that are creating more anxiety in people? What is the driving force of all this anxiety? Did you come across anything like that?
Yeah, basically, it's a fear of the unknown. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but the big one is the fear of the unknown. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of instability with things that people thought were structurally in place, like like well, like healthcare, but that's not in place. Like the economy, but that's not in place. Like politics. I mean, take a look at our political situation. I won't go into details, but it's definitely in question in terms of democracy, and people who felt as if that was never going to change are now apprehensive about all of the change going on, the fear of the unknown, what's going to happen. And so fear of the unknown is huge. There's lots of different fears, fear of death, but a lot of them relate to the fear of the unknown and the uncertainty. It's kind of funny. I listen to a little bit of news and comments and stuff, and I hear the words chaos, turmoil, catastrophe. All of these words describe a world in dramatic change. And really, the answer is change. I mean, again, change brings the fear of the unknown. I love the expression that says the only person who likes change is a wet baby.
Well, being a babysitter of a grandson that has wet diapers, that is very true.
Yeah.
You had one more question you wanted to ask? I'm sorry,
sure.
I jumped the gun, but Ryan
No
has one more
worries.
question.
Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to include into the book that didn't make it in?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking that. Yeah, I think a lot of books when they get formatted have a set limit of pages, and so if you have stuff that you want to put in there, a lot of times they'll say, "Nope, we're at max right now." I didn't get told that, but they kind of hinted about it. But after it was all said and done, I wish I could have put in a few more essays about consciousness at the end because there's two schools of thought about consciousness to kind of include this. And I put this in the book, but I could have put more detail. The first school of thought says that consciousness or your thoughts are what they call an epiphenomenon of brain chemistry. All of the brain neuropeptides that slosh around your gray matter are creating thoughts of, wow, it's cold outside, or the spaghetti tastes good, or something. That's one school of thought, and I don't subscribe to that. The other school of thought, which I do subscribe to, is that consciousness is everywhere, and our brains are the primary organ of choice for it to communicate and for us to use our five senses to make sense of where we are in the world. So there's a lot about I could have written like 15 volumes on consciousness, but that wasn't the point of the book, so I kind of kept it short. But one thing I wish I put in there I didn't get time to do was we now know that meditation is not the fountain of youth, but the research shows that it begins to repair the telomeres of the DNA strands, so that when the telomeres become shortened, we age faster. But they now know that with meditation, we can increase the length of the telomeres on the ends of the genes, and as a consequence, we don't come down with as many diseases and illnesses, or we don't age as quickly. And I think that's great. I mean, I just turned 69, and I hope I can go for like another 30 years, with this model. I got to take good care of it. But meditation, of course, like sleeping is important, like good nutrition, exercise, and meditation. The four things I would include for anyone's health behaviors. By the way, I saw this meme I thought was pretty funny. It says, "Today's medical students are learning how to practice medicine through Chat GPT. So this would be a good time to learn to eat healthy."
Oh my word. Oh my word. Well, I very excited for your book. Again, the book is called Mind Over Anxiety. You can get this book anywhere, correct?
Yeah, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, I guess all the outlets, regular bookstores and stuff. I can also get it as a audiobook. I don't know the actor. I don't know if I told you, but they hired an actor to do the voiceover because they said that authors tend to waste too much time in the studio. So they hired an actor from New York City, I think, to do the audio. But they asked me to do the guided meditations, which I'm so happy about. So
Oh, I'm glad for that because
two for the price of one.
really wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you like to share any of your contact information with our listeners where they can find information about you, anything like that? You have a website.
Yes, I do. So the website is my full name, brianlukeseaward.com. I'll spell it for you: BrianLuke, and then SEAWARD.com. It's got all kinds of good stuff on there. My email address, if you want to reach out that way, is brianlukes@cs.com. CS stands for CopyServe. It's a very old server there. And then, yeah, those are the best ways to reach me there. And yeah, I usually put my calendar up in terms of events. I do some workshops and retreats, and nothing yet planned for Ireland, but I'm looking at 2027.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's exciting.
I gotta tell Mike. Definitely us. We want to thank you for being our special guest today, Luke.
Oh, my pleasure. This is great. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, it's been really wonderful to share with you and hear your stories. And I'm sure our listeners really love it too. And so thank you. Thank you for being here, being with us and sharing today.
My pleasure. And I
And
want to say thank you to you guys for putting together some incredible content that is helping to raise consciousness, because there are people who are waking up thinking, I've had this experience. Am I alone in this? How do I learn more about what I'm experiencing in terms of the bigger picture? And when they come across content like yours, it helps them realize they're not alone, which is so very, very important in the world
thank
today.
you for saying that.
Thank you for saying
That
that.
makes us feel good, right? Yeah, that makes us
Yeah.
feel real good.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate that. So on that note, we'd like to say goodbye to our listeners,
Thanks,
and
Phil.
we will we look forward to connecting with everybody next week. So thank
Hey,
you so much.
thanks, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to Ready to Connect. If you're interested in exclusive behind the scenes content, be sure to like, share, and follow us on social media by searching for Ready to Connect Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And for those looking to further support our podcast, consider subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/readytoconnectpodcast. And until next time, get ready to connect.